that's why I wrote the No Recipe Cookbook, to really focus on ways to save money through food, because it's the little things every day that add up over time. It's just like you invest money, right? You know that if you invest money, the earlier you start, the interest over time. So it's those little bits of spending every day that make the difference.
Welcome to the Student Loan Podcast.
Here, you'll find practical advice on tackling student loan debt, paying down your higher education expenses,
and inspiring stories about paying off student loans. We're your hosts, Daphne Vanessa
and Shamil Rodriguez.
Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Student Loan Podcast by visiting the Student Loan Podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your podcasts.
This is not professional advice, and we speak from our own personal views and opinions.
The Student Loan Podcast is brought to you by Start New, where you can serve your community and get rewarded with tuition and student loan payments. To check out if Start New is on your campus, visit startnew.com. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Student Loan Podcast. Today, we have Dr. Samantha Pillay, and she is here to tell us about how you can save money by maybe skipping out on dorm food. So with that, Dr. Pillay, please introduce yourself.
Hi, Daphne. It's great to be here. I'm a surgeon in South Australia, Adelaide. So I have spent a lot of time at university or college in the early days.
Amazing. And what was your college experience like? How is college in where you live compared to where a lot of our listeners are from, which, maybe the United States?
Well, I haven't been to college in the United States, but there are quite a lot of differences in the sense that a lot of people, there's not as many cities, and the colleges aren't as remote. So a lot of people more people would live at home. There isn't even the colleges available for as many people to live on campus. And although we have fees, I don't think the fees are as high as they are there, but it still can be a really big burden for people when they finish to start out to spend years, paying that off.
Right. Interesting. And how was your experience? Walk us through all of your degrees. You're obviously well educated if you're a doctor. So what was that like?
Well, I finished school when I was 16. So I went straight into medical school.
At 16 years old?
Yeah, I turned sort of 17 just as the year was starting. So I went off to all of the orientation stuff, including a camp called Med Camp. I don't know if you have the same inauguration type thing. I went to Med Camp at the age of 16, having grown up in an all-girl family from an all-girl school, was surrounded by what you can imagine was the worst of the worst. That was a bit of a baptism by fire, a lot of heavy drinking and stuff. And went into medical school. Then it's a 6-year university degree here. And then we do what's called an internship that gives you your sort of license to practice. And then it's actually changed, but I did what's called the sort of basic surgical training, then got accepted into advanced training in urology, which is the specialty I do, surgery of the urinary tract. Finished that, did some further subspecialist training in the field of what we call female or functional urology. So I specialize in the surgical treatment of urinary incontinence. So it was a long haul, sort of, all up sort of 14 years. But after you fully qualify in your medical degree and you're doing your surgical training, you are working in hospitals on a training program, which I think is very similar to what you have there. So by then you're on a salary, whereas obviously when you're in college and as a student, you there's no salary, but you do it's like a working sort of apprenticeship surgical training. So, but long time. But like life now, it's ongoing learning. I just study just as hard as I did when I was whether it was a doing my final year of exams for school, whether I was doing my final exams for med school, whether I was doing my final exams for surgery. I hate to say it, in my 50s, I still study just as hard because of the world we live in. I own a business, so I'm an entrepreneur. I have a surgical practice where other doctors work that I own. So I've had a lot to learn in that area, and now I'm a self-published author and speaker, so I'm just forever learning.
Wow. Oh my goodness. I'm so intrigued by the system in Australia, and I'd just like to speak on that just a little bit so that people can understand that there are options. You don't have to stay in the country where you went to secondary school. So what is it like for, let's say, an American student who wants to attend university in Australia? Is that a possibility? Or have you
There are student visas. Obviously, we had, and they're back up and running, I believe. Obviously, they all kind of got cancelled, of course, something called COVID. But with the travel opened up now, there are student visas that allow people to come in. When people are sort of overseas, it can be more expensive than if they are obviously Australian citizens because of government support. But even though it's more expensive, obviously the US dollar is strong here. Now, I'm not an expert in this area, so I don't know, but it would be very easy to find out how. But I believe that the fees may be more affordable, for people to even come out here if you look at the US dollar. But as I say, what those opportunities are they'd have to, and it would vary for university as well, and a number of different things. Yeah.
Very cool. Just very interesting, a different approach. I know that we've had an episode on a while ago where a gentleman came on to speak about Canada being an alternative solution for people to go to school, because even the non-Canadian tuition fees are substantially less than, American tuition fees, as an example. So Australia, another option. Very cool. So speaking of all of your school experience, you went to school so young. 16. Was that normal where you were?
No.
Okay. So you're an excellent, stellar student, genius type.
There's an article that's just I read in the US that a 13-year-old girl, an African-American girl, has just gone to medical school. Did you?
Yes,
I don't know if
I saw that. I saw that online.
There's plenty of young people doing it.
I know. You say plenty because you did it, but I think it's still something that is, worth celebrating. Like my father and mother were both, they call it in their country, lauréat, which means it's like the number one in the country. And it's so normalized for them because, but when you think about it, like how many number ones in the country are there? There aren't that many. So while they have it normalized, I wasn't number one in the country. So I think it would be really cool just to hear your experience about that for people who are currently in school thinking about, how could I perform better?
The funny thing is that sort of leads to another whole tangent that I work on, which is self-belief. So I think self-belief is a really important foundation, and it starts in small children at the age of 3. And that is what sets you up for your goals, for your vision. That is what allows you to make your passion become real. That is what's behind that resilience and perseverance. And that self-belief is just absolutely fundamental. So I do quite a bit to sort of promote gender equity and try and build self-belief in young girls. And I know you've got a young daughter, so it's like right up where I'm passionate about in creating that self-belief. And so one of the things I tell, people is to dream big, aim high. And that's one of the things that I probably, only came to realize later on. I could have dreamed bigger and aimed higher a lot younger, but I didn't have the role models to do that. And I often say to people, whatever your dream is, double it and then double it again. So that allows you to really push yourself. I was very academic because I actually had some physical limitations from birth, so I couldn't actually play sport or walk very far or, just do a lot of things. And so that meant that I spent a lot of time studying. So that, as well as, I suppose, being bright enough, meant that academics was my passion, what I loved. And so that just led to me sort of being able to kind of get through things quickly. And I mean, even through medical school, obviously I did the normal time, but it was unusual for people to get straight onto the surgical training program like I did. And I think that's just down to putting your head down and having an absolute passion, and then working as hard as you can to make that come true.
Yeah, I love that. Amazing. And so, being admitted so young, did you have any student loan debt?
So that the whole system, because obviously I finished a long time ago, 1991, kind of my last year of med school. And initially when I started, education was more or less free. So it came in during, so I didn't have a full 6 years. I think I had 3 or 4 years in actual fact. So it came in while I was actually at university. So yes, I did have a student debt. What was different is that with our geography, a lot of people live at home, as I mentioned. So obviously it wasn't as expensive, but I still think that's an option. It depends on people's geography. Right. But obviously for those that can be somewhere where it's close to home and they can live at home, I'm sure it's just cheaper no matter where you are. If you're still living with your parents. So I did have that debt to pay off, and I am the sort of person that's really focused. So obviously working really hard and saving early on and paying, the sooner you pay it off, the better, is going to be the same principle no matter where the debt is or what the country is. I'm sure the rules are the same. The longer you borrow money for, someone's got to pay for it.
Yep. Amazing. So how quickly do you remember how much your student?
Yeah, I know you're stretching. I reckon that I paid it off within a couple of years.
Oh, wow. So yeah. Because it wasn't that much, or because like in comparison,
it wasn't that much. We also, when we start our intern, well, it's all the same principles. So I was living at home. I was living on the cheap. Everything I did was about saving money. I was like a goal.
You were a doctor, right?
My focus was to just pay this off ASAP. So I had the worst car ever. And I'm still the same principles. It's still the same principles. I drive a car. I'm a surgeon. Probably the only person in the whole of my state who's a surgeon and drives a car with a cassette player. Yeah. So, some of the surgeons have got handbags worth more money than my car. So
I love it.
So, it's the same principles in life. If you're a saver, if you're a lifelong saver and you look for ways to save. So, and I'm still doing that. So I could have done a lot more when I was younger, but, youth got in its way. I've got actually more careful probably with my money as I got older. And there can be income creep, but, if you look for ways to save money, and that's why I wrote the No Recipe Cookbook, to really focus on ways to save money through food, because it's the little things every day that add up over time. It's just like you invest money, right? You know that if you invest money, the earlier you start, the interest over time. So it's those little bits of spending every day that make the difference.
Yeah, let's get into the No Recipe Cookbook, right? Because we spoke about how you, minimized your expenses, living with your parents, et cetera, in school. And there's another little secret that you have, which is how students can save money by cooking. But you have a book called the No Recipe Cookbook. So I don't get it. Like, let us know what's going on here.
So it started up, well, there was a number of different factors. One is the biggest stress in my life was what's for dinner. I was a single mum. I had a business. I was working in the business as a surgeon. Things were crazy. And I also had declining mobility with my hips before I had a hip replacement, because I had congenital hip dysplasia. So I was having difficulty actually shopping, driving a car, walking the supermarket aisles, carrying a basket, unpacking, cooking, everything. So I worked out a way that I could shop once every 2 weeks. have a meal plan of just these basic meals that I would use on rinse and repeat, where you could vary the ingredients depending on what suited your taste. So change it up a bit, but still go back to the same basics, whether it was a stew or stir fry or whatever. And then I reduced my stress and saved myself loads of time, because I'd look at all these, have these cookbooks, and I'd look at them. And by the time I'd worked out what I was going to do around the list, I was over it. At the end of the day, I'm hangry and I've got decision fatigue. Trying to choose from an app is an effort. So just by organized planning and shopping once every 2 weeks, I save myself time and money. Now, the thing was, I'm also passionate about health, obviously. And I lost loads of weight, because what we don't realize is how much sugar, salt, and hidden fats the bad fats, the saturated fats, are in eating out. So 75% of salt comes from processed foods and takeout. And the average American eats out or takes out 5 times a week. And so there was huge health benefits from knowing what's in your food and being able to reduce those hidden sugars and salts that are in the food. And obviously it more than halved my food spending and reduced my kitchen waste. I was emptying the bin a couple of times a week, and then suddenly at the end of a week, when we emptied the bin, it was like half full. It was ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So I kind of thought, well, these sorts of benefits of saving money, being healthier, reducing my weight, reducing my waste, looking after, saving myself time, like that, I'm not the only person that struggles with this. Yeah. And I see patients who obviously struggle with these healthy lifestyle changes. And I thought, well, I want to write, I'm not a chef, right? That's the whole point. I'm not a chef. I want to write a book for people who don't cook. I know people who say, I don't cook, and they buy every meal out, whether they buy it and eat it at home or whether they eat it out. But every meal they don't cook. Now, if you think about that, especially from a student perspective, what sort of money would you save over a lifetime if you had a basic skill of how to cook a meal in 10, 15 minutes? And often it's $2 or $3 a meal. You don't realize just how much you can save by home cooking. So, and if you invested that over time, your ability to probably pay off your student loan just based on your cooking at home would be huge. I think there's a website, I'm just trying to remember what it's called, that has information on the US that I even looked up, and they had, I think, over $500 or something on campus meals, and over $300 a month on people eating off campus, compared to a $3 average meal if it was sort of home cooked. So the savings are there. Goes back to those little things every day, whether it's money or whether it's your health that you're investing in. You kind of invest now, you'll reap the rewards. And if you don't invest now, you'll end up paying later, because you'll be behind, whether it's on your healthy lifestyle, which is my other area that I sort of talk about and passionate about, chronic disease prevention, or whether it's your finances.
Very true. The habits are so aligned. And I think we've had another episode where we spoke about that as well, but habits of eating and exercise are so aligned to your financial health. I just see the two similarly. And even for myself, when I've been in spaces where I'm not eating healthy and things aren't going well, I'm also less disciplined with my finances. So I agree with you that they're incredibly correlated.
Yes. So the No Recipe Cookbook, there's no pictures, no recipes. It's actually, I grabbed it here. It's a little short novel that you can read. Oh, wow. So cool. It's sort of something people could read if they are on a bus or a train or something, read in an evening and use a basic repertoire of meals. I've actually got 4 of the meals people can download for free from my website, samanthapillay.com, and they can just get started and, practice. And what happens is that you can then go, I know how to make that dish with whatever meat, whatever veg, or whatever meat substitute I want. I know how to prepare it and chop it and add it to the pan in a way that reduces washing up, reduces cooking time, and I can do it quicker and easier than ordering a delivery. And the what you would save in one day, and what you could do if you invested that money over time. It's not just the money you saved in a day. It's what that means, whether you're paying off a student loan or whatever you're doing with it, that's going to make a big difference. So in actual fact, obviously, the younger you are, the greater the opportunity in those savings. So that was how the No Recipe Cookbook came about. I wanted something for kitchen folks, people who didn't cook, to be able to save money. I think a lot of cooking shows and cookbooks that are out there are for people who want to cook.
Right.
It makes sense. And it's like, no, I want to write a book for people who don't want to cook, So yeah, I realize it's a bit of a hard sell.
Before I was a parent, but I was married, my job sent me to another city to live in, which was away from my husband. I was on assignment. And during that time, I was like, yes, I finally don't have to cook, because no shocker here, I didn't know how to cook until, I met him. I really never knew how to cook. But during that time, I basically just ate arugula out of a bag because it was easier than cooking. And I just agree with you so much that all of these shows act like, everybody wants to stand in the kitchen for hours. And I appreciate the art of cooking. I really do. Like, I think it's super creative, but I don't want to do it every night. Or even
we want to eat. We don't want to cook. We just want to eat.
Exactly. And just full disclosure, when I was in college, I didn't know how to cook at all. And but people thought I did, because my college boyfriend, who's now my husband, used to ask for certain foods, and I would just ask like a family member, like my mom or my aunt, to cook it. And then I would bring it and I would act like I made it.
I think it's cheating. Is that cheating?
It's totally cheating. I of course disclosed myself, before we got married. Don't worry. But I didn't know how to cook in college. Like, no, I was focused on studying, honestly, in basketball. That's what I did in secondary. So I didn't know how to cook. So I think this is.
So if you think about the cost of that, and I don't mean just the day-to-day saving because you've cooked a meal at home, and as a result, you haven't spent as much money on food. Mm-hmm. But if you think of the ability to actually cook a meal at home faster, because we have this, we think that convenience foods are convenient, but a lot of the time it means you've left the house, you're standing in line, you're waiting to get served, you're on hold on the phone, you're looking through apps, so when it's just there and you can grab it, which is what you were doing, although it was just, a bag of food, you realize that that's still faster. So think of the opportunity cost and what you could do with that time, whether you're actually generating income or investing it in your skills that will one day generate income. So it's not just the dollar cost saving, but then it's the ability of what you've done with the time and the money that you've saved over your lifetime as well, because you've paid off your student loan faster and you've got through your course or whatever it is, got your work done first, faster, done more work.
Right.
But then if you think about it from a health point of view, which is chronic disease prevention, which is my other area of interest, 80% of heart disease, stroke, diabetes is preventable, 40% of cancer is preventable. So if you're so busy being consumed with your success that you don't have time to look after your health and you're just eating out all the time, a third of people in the US have high blood pressure, 3/4 of the population are overweight or obese. What is then, if you're thinking about dollars, how's that going to impact on your ability to work when you're older, right? And then what's the economic impact of that? And that not only that, what's going to be the cost of, so you've got reduced productivity and that's cost. And then you've also got all the health costs, the bills, the medical bills of your medication or your appointments.
Right.
So that single meal, if you think about it, that one meal that you eat out versus the $2 if you cooked it yourself, that cost of that is huge over your lifetime when you think about your time, your health, and your money.
Oh my goodness. It's so real. What if you're a person who is not health conscious? It's the right thing to do, but you just feel like you're lazy and it feels easier. It's not easier, right? But it feels easier to go to whatever fast food place and order whatever, fast food, you can't even call it garbage they serve.
It's funny you ask that, because there's something you don't know about me, and that is that I actually do public speaking. And one of the things, the main thing I speak on is exactly that. So there's so much information out there, but the problem is people just don't do it, right? Or even, and either they might not know, or that even if they know, they still don't do it. It's just too hard. We're too busy. Right. And so I talk on this one body, one life, invest now or pay later. And showing examples, what helps people is, one, what I've just talked about, thinking, oh, wow, I'm going to get, it could be the difference in your wealth over your lifetime in looking after your health. And the other health statistics, to understand what that impact is. Like the average American has like 17 teaspoons of sugar a day, and, knowing the risk of, diabetes, a third have pre-diabetes and things like that. So knowing those statistics can help people go, I can't ignore it. Right. But how I get people to be motivated is to help them build their health armor one thing at a time. So what happens is often people do unhealthy things and it all starts to add up and it sort of snowballs and it's overwhelming. They go, it's all too hard because I've got too much salt. I'm overweight and it's just too much. But in reverse, it's true. If you start to do something positive for your health, it also snowballs. They also help each other. So start very small. So what you could do is, you might drink an extra glass of water a day, or start with something really small where you know that you're making an effort to look after yourself. So one of the things I sort of teach people is just brush your teeth properly. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous, but most people are already brushing their teeth. Right. Now, if every morning you walk into the bathroom, you pick up your toothbrush, you floss your teeth, you brush your teeth for a full 2 minutes. And while you do that, you think about the fact that you're doing something positive for your health. You think about what else you're going to do positive for your health that day. And at the end of the day, you brush your teeth again and think about what you did right and what you did wrong. You've made very little change in your daily routine, but you've just shifted your mindset. Now, that is the start. And once you get that habit in, you can then go, go for the low-hanging fruit. Yeah. Right. But what will happen is the more you start to look after your health and you become that healthy person you want to be, the easier it will be to add in everything else. So sun, is a big thing. 50% of Americans get skin cancer. A lot of people get, most of aging is sun related. And more Americans get skin cancer from solariums than lung cancer from smoking. So, you can put on sunscreen. Yeah. And then, you're putting on sunscreen, you're starting to make an effort there. You're, having health, you're drinking water instead of soda, or you start adding these little things in. Then suddenly when you go to, order a meal and it's, do I go for, greasy food and a bucket of chips or something healthier? You're more likely to make that decision because you've already started doing all these other little things in your life that make you think, I'm a healthier person.
Oh my goodness. So you're saying using the small habits to get into the big habits.
Yeah. And just start building and building and building. So, whereas if you sort of go, I'm going to completely revolutionize my diet and whatever, and that's with the No Recipe Cookbook. The meals aren't a health book. There is lots of health books out there. It's just to try and get people into the kitchen. So, there is sugar and salt, but you see it's nothing compared to what there is in meals bought outside. And then once people's taste buds need time to adapt. You can just get people in the kitchen, cooking food, knowing what's in it. And then it's okay to have some of, those meals. You can gradually become more health conscious and go, well, I might add salt to this, but these meals don't have salt. And over a week, that's fine. I'm still within the recommendations. Wow.
And what if people have like their go-to going out food? Like, for people in the States, maybe it's the shrumami from Sweetgreen, or, from people in Europe, like wherever you are, there's maybe your fast food place that you have your order. Are you encouraging people to learn to make that at home? Or are you encouraging people to make something else?
it depends on what's in that food. So the best thing is knowledge is power. Okay. So take salt, because often salt's something that people really aren't aware of. They look at it and they go, oh, I think I know how much, fat there is, or I think I know how much sugar there is. It's sweet or it's not sweet. Well, they just might not realize. Or even with sugar, people know, oh, there's 11 teaspoons in a can of soda, but did they know that there's the same amount in an iced tea or slice of carrot cake? So that it's having the right knowledge. But it's similarly with salt, knowing what the daily recommendation of 1 teaspoon is. But it's recommended
1 teaspoon of salt per day.
Yes, but if you're over the age of 50, or you're African American, or you have diabetes, heart disease, or kidney disease, it's 2/3 of a teaspoon.
Oh my goodness! Oh wow! Yeah.
So that's what I mean by knowledge is power. Yeah. And then, they're saying now that people should have their blood pressure checked every year from the age of 5, because the diets are so high in salt. We're seeing like these diseases in children.
And do you think part of that is like everybody's so focused on giving up sugar? Everybody's like, I think, millennials and Gen Z anyways, we're all like, no to sugar, saying no to sugar, but heavy on
the And so the CDC's estimated there's more salt in a restaurant meal than fast food.
Oh, wow.
So there's no regulation and so we're seeing, extraordinary rates of heart disease and high blood pressure. So so the knowledge then goes, okay, well, is that food something that starts to lose its shine if you think about it damaging you? So the World Health Organization has classified processed meat as a class 1 carcinogen. So a serve of like 2 pieces of bacon a day increases your risk of bowel cancer. So, suddenly if you start thinking about what you're actually eating and you've got some knowledge, you might either have it less often or change that favorite fast food.
Right. I'm vegan, so that's not my case. But for the non-vegans out there, told you, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But okay, so processed meat, you said. What about real meat? Like
red meat.
Leaving the Western nations and going to a country where animals just run around and they pick it up, they kill it, and they eat it. No salt to preserve it because they're eating it right then and there.
Yeah. So there's a number of different sort of websites that you can go to. There is some. I'm just trying to remember. It's not a group 1. It's like red meat's not a group 1 carcinogen. There has been some links, I think, to high levels in the diet, but it's not something that people are told that they should avoid, like processed meat as such. It's the processing process that makes it a group 1 carcinogen. Right. So there's a lot of stuff. I mean, one of the things that I've written about, so I write some health related articles on my website if people are interested. One of the articles I wrote was about alcohol. So as I've got older, I drink less than I did at college. No surprise. Yeah.
And in college, we all drink enough for our lifetimes, so we're good.
Yeah. So basically, because I was in this, I was starting to get more data. The more data I got, the healthier I got, so it's worked for me. It can work for you. Knowledge is power. And researching into the risks of cancer from alcohol, like 2 or 3 glasses of wine a week increases a woman's risk of breast cancer by 18%. So understanding the risks associated with alcohol with cancer was a real eye-opener for me, that there's no sort of safe level, as well as the other health-related risks. So if anyone wants to read my article, I wrote that article, I haven't had a drink since.
Yeah. It's really interesting. There are so many opportunities to like reset your body with alcohol. And it's a great, I don't like to say like I don't drink, but I just happen to not have had alcohol since I was pregnant. I just never drank again, not intentionally. I just stopped doing it. But I think there are just little opportunities that your body resets. I've never felt better. Also, I've never been more alert. And I'm not saying I used to drink that much, but I definitely was drinking more than 2 glasses a week. So
Yeah, so that's it. I'm at sort of in my 50s. So, for me, I was difficulty sleeping. I've always had difficulty sleeping, really stressed, busy with work. And, when you so what I did was I wrote an article about the risks of low level alcohol. So the idea that it affects your productivity because, you come home at night, you have dinner, have a glass of wine, and, relax. But the idea that it causes anxiety. So we use it, so the anxiety affects quality of sleep. So what happens is, it gives short-term relief from anxiety, but the withdrawal effect is anxiety. So that just creates a more and more dependency while you don't actually deal with whatever's making you anxious. You just escape it. And when you come back, it's still there. And you don't develop other life skills that are more healthy at ways of dealing with stress. And so
what are some healthier ways of dealing with stress?
Well, your mental health, looking after your mental health, looking after your diet, looking after your physical health, looking after your sleep, mindfulness, meditation, relaxation, yoga, talking about emotions, learning how to solve the problem rather than just escaping it, taking it head on, and looking at it. So they just build up. You just keep escaping them as you get older. You just get more and more problems. So the ability to, but for me, you see, my biggest asset is my brain. And, obviously as I get older, I'm in that second half of life, unlike a lot of the college students, but you will get there one day and you want to look after it, whether it be your brain or your skin or, you want to think about investing in it for the long haul. And so really I wanted to keep my mental acuity. I love learning. So I wanted to keep my processing power and to be able to stay sharp, stay faster, and stay younger. And I think that I am like that. I mean, I've written 7 books in 2 years because I don't have a drink at night. There's a lot I can do in the evenings.
Wow. But 7 books in 2 years. I mean, even for somebody sober is still impressive, because you're still a doctor. I think that's why it's impressive.
Yeah,
that's own, like a practice with doctors working for you, and you had time to write 7 books.
Yes, so they're children's picture books, which are first was when I'm a surgeon. Yeah, the first was when I'm a surgeon, so the word counts low. The second, when I'm an entrepreneur, and the third one that's just out on Amazon, when I'm an astronaut. And then there's activity colouring in books to inspire sort of the next generation of female leaders. So they've all got a female protagonist, and she hopefully will inspire the next generation, like your daughter. So and the cookbook. Yes, so that is my evening creativity and relaxation. The day work is either seeing patients, operating, or running a business.
Wow, amazing. When do you have time to sleep? Do you sleep?
That is one of the things is, I'm not perfect with my health, and that's my biggest next health goal. So I've really, I had a hip replacement 5 years ago. So I've had a lot of physical work I've had to do from this congenital hip dysplasia, which is this condition with my hips, that it just wasn't picked up when I was born. So I failed to walk. I mean, I even started school in a wheelchair. So it's been a really lifelong battle.
So you had this since you were a child?
Yes, I was born with this condition. Wow. And so I've been doing a lot of my physical space, and then, my diet. I have always struggled to keep my weight down because I couldn't exercise. Right. And I always had normal BMI, which was a big effort. And I had a bit of an aha moment when I found out that your waist measurement is more important than your BMI. And even with the normal BMI, if your waist measurement is over 31.5 inches, you have an increased risk of heart disease, stroke, and death. So I had to sort of lose a few pounds. And then I've been, as I say, I've got healthier. I've started working in the health space. So what I'm doing is coming up with all my excuses. No, I'm still working on my sleep. That's my biggest goal. And that's because I do too much. I'm probably stressed, menopausal, a few other things, to try and improve my sleep. But I am improving. I'm trying to slow down. I'm trying to learn to relax. I'm trying to learn to meditate and become more mindfulness. I was very much a full-on young person, 2 to 4 hours sleep for most of my 20s, 30s, and 40s. I'm now more 5 to 6, sometimes 7 hours sleep. My aim is to get to 7.5. But like things, it's the little things. I'm slowly doing all the things all the time, trying to improve that problem and get myself in that part of my health better. It's decades of hard work to get me to be the person that I want to be.
Wow. And so you're saying you slept 2 to 3 hours in your 20s, 30s, and 40s? Did you ever burn out? Or
that's right. Everyone goes, you can't keep doing this, but I'm living proof you can.
Wow.
So I did get up at 4 a.m. this morning, which is pretty usual.
Mm-hmm.
But I go to bed earlier now.
Same. But you never burnt out. I think that's what's the shocking part to me, is that people keep that rhythm for a long time, but you hear a lot of people that also quit their whatever they're doing that's making them wake up
Yeah, I think I suppose there's other things, that I look after. I've been diligent on my finances, so I haven't, I've had things I've had to deal with, but I've managed to keep things over the line. I've looked after my health. I've had problems I had to deal with. I mean, before I had my hip replacement, it got so bad that I couldn't even stand and wash my hair, or I'd be in tears just trying to get dressed. So I've had things, but I know what you say, because you're not the first person. People used to always say to me, "Oh my God, you're going to burn out," And I used to worry about the fact that I was going to burn out, because everyone used to tell me that.
Yeah, but it never happened to you.
Yeah, and then I'm going to stop worrying about it, because I've been doing it for decades now. And I'm not burning out. So, why do I stop worrying? Well, I'm going to stop. Things got better when I stopped worrying about the fact that I wasn't sleeping.
Yeah. Amazing. Wow. So that's almost like a Vishen Lakhiani lesson, where it's like not allowing for the rules of what society says to dictate your life. Like maybe somebody else would burn out, but you're not burning out, That's pretty cool. But
I'm still working, as I say, I'm still working to try and get more sleep. I think there was lots of things. I mean, first, there was multiple things. Like I had almost 18 months in a hospital when I was a child. I had chronic pain from birth, had lots of surgery. I was very institutionalized, because you were kept in hospital in those days. And so you're woken up, every half an hour, because it was a big open ward, all the kids in the one room, and, black and white TV in the corner, and the old matron, it was very,
oh my goodness.
I was born in the 60s. Yeah. So
the parents get to visit you in the hospital back then?
Yeah. My parents got to visit, but, my dad worked long hours, so my mum would come in with my siblings and stuff like that. But it was a very institutionalized upbringing and very disruptive for sleep. And then,
right.
There were lots of things over the years. There's obviously, I've chosen a sort of stressful and demanding career. I've done careers where I'm on call. I did surgical registrar on call at major trauma hospital. You don't even get to bed. And then sort of before my hip replacement, I had, very significant problems for sort of 10 years, where I couldn't never sleep for more than 2 hours because of pain and continuously anyway. So there's so many things that have added up to me being, this is real sort of, my problems. I don't want to be venting my problems, but my sleep issues. But it's a good example of the way that I'm recognize through this health work how important sleep is, and how much it's a risk factor, and how hard it's been for me to do that work, and the amount of work that I've gone to go from 2 to 4 hours to sort of 5 to 6, sometimes 7 hours, and it's taken years. And it's really getting close. I'm putting so many little things in place to reduce my workload and look after myself, and trying to slow down. Yeah, trying to slow down, because I realize that if I slow down during the day, I'm more likely to have a better sleep at night.
True. Wow. I know that it's kind of like veering off, but I'm so curious how you've been able to be so successful with, technically what some might call a disability, right? Like you've really taken your life like no one would ever know that you had any sort of health challenge.
Yeah, I think I always looked about what I was I always set goals. That was the way I sort of stopped living in the here and now and focusing on what I was doing, and always strove towards those goals and never stopped to really think about what I couldn't do, because that would have been very depressing. So I never thought about what I couldn't do. I always thought about what I could do. And that's, I think, part of why that's inspired me to do those children's picture books, to try and inspire people, because I've realized that, I've been able to achieve things that most people wouldn't have thought possible. So when I did medicine, everyone said, that's great, but as long as you don't do surgery, because you've got to stand. So that's the only thing you can't do. So what did I do? Surgery, which is probably a little bit, about, and I had, even more sort of, I don't know, whatever attitude then. But I chose a surgical specialty where a lot of the operations were short, and I could do most of my surgery sitting down. So I had to work within my limitations, but also set those goals. And it wasn't easy. I could have had a lot of cruisier life if I'd chosen something else. But the only person that would have missed out then was me.
Deep. Very.
So, I had a vision, I had a passion, I had a goal, what I wanted to do. It's like, I don't know. It's like never traveling because you're afraid you might lose your luggage.
Yeah.
You'll never know what it's like then, will you?
Yeah. And you'll miss out on a lot because the world is beautiful. Amazing. Oh my goodness. You are so cool. Like I've learned I'm so impressed. I really didn't. I knew some of your backstory, but definitely not this much. And I'm really honored that you came here to speak with us just to inspire us, because how did you do all that? And you're not even done with half of your life yet. You're killing it. Like hopefully not. But I think, the biggest thing is having a purpose. So you have a purpose and you have a passion, and everything else falls into place. I think a lot of people think, I do some business mentoring and, teaching in that area. And if you sort of think, how can I come up with a business that's going to make money? Then you're going to find it a very exhausting process. If you have a passion and go, I'm passionate about this, I can solve this problem, I'm going to go out and do it, then you've got your sweat equity. Turning it into a business is just secondary. Truth.
That's the problem. You work out the passion, and now your job is to make that into a profitable, efficient business that creates a revenue that's sustainable, so that you can continue to follow your passion and serve others.
Right. Amazing. Well, we've covered so much, and I am so appreciative again that you came on. Are there any last words of encouragement or tips that you'd like to share for how people could, use dorm food or stop using dorm food and save more money?
Think about what you can do in a day, and then appreciate what that is over time. Right. So, but in the reverse, is this day one or one day? Yeah. Every unhealthy meal you have takes you one step closer to that now it's too late moment. Right. So I see so many people who come in to see the doctor, and they get the bad results from their doctor. Why wait for that? And what happens is, so many people, it's then they have the heart attack, they get the cancer, and suddenly, most people often know stories. Suddenly, someone they know, just an ordinary person, does something absolutely remarkable. They change their whole world, their whole life. Yep. They do what was impossible. And what did they do it with? The skills they had all along. They're still the same
person.
They're still the same person. So whatever the resources were that they've done now to transform their life around, they had all along. It's only that's triggered them to be able to do it. So if you've got those resources, which you all have, which is what motivates me to help people, because I see ordinary people do extraordinary things. I believe in people. I want people to believe in themselves as much as I believe in them, because I know they can do it, and they can do it now. Why wait until they get the bad news from the doctor?
Wow. Amazing. Dr. Samantha Pillay. That was so inspiring. Guys, for more on this episode and more, please visit thestudentloanpodcast.com/episode 73.